June 30th, 2022. The Aussie Cossack stands for sentence. Be at the Burwood Court from 9 a.m. and stand for sentence beside the Aussie Cossack. Hey, and don't forget to send him a postcard. Stand for sentence with the Aussie Cossack. 9 a.m. Burwood Courthouse, June 30th. See you there. This is the voice of freedom. We are not one voice. We are many. We are your voice. But we can only be effective if you use your voice. Your voice. This is the voice of freedom. We will not hide from the truth. We will ask the hard questions until we are sure we have the truth. Welcome to the voice of freedom, where your voice will never be silenced.
Well, g'day and welcome to the show. First of all, my apologies for last night's show. All sorts of connection problems last night, folks. It's been one of those interesting times. We're battling away. I've been on the phone to those telcos that I deal with, and solutions are short on coming at the moment. So anyway, we're going to see how we go. I did promise Darren Bergwerf from Victoria again last night. And of course, with the connection issues that I had, we weren't able to make that happen. Fortunately, we've been able to be squeezed into his very busy program for today's show. So welcome back to the show, Darren Bergwerf. How are you, mate?
Oh, I'm very well. Thanks, Carl. How are you?
Well, you know, struggling with telcos, but that's a whole other ballgame. I don't live in Victoria. I don't live in Victoria, Stan. I've got much smaller problems than you guys. I noticed today Dan Andrews, in response to 4 ministers telling him that they're going to quit at the forthcoming election, has responded by appointing, or potentially lining up to appoint, someone from Labor's left, the same side or faction side as himself, as his deputy. Now, I'm a Victorian. I was born in Victoria and lived there for many years. Until I got too cold. And I understand that certainly in the Victorian Labor Party, that job is usually made up if the Premier is from the left, then the deputy will be from the right, or at least not the same faction. So he's breaking convention. It's not the only thing he's breaking in Victoria, though.
No, he's Dan Andrews, Dictator Dan. He's breaking businesses, he's breaking people, he's breaking spirits, and he's breaking laws potentially. The man breaks everything he touches, and it's no surprise to me that supposedly James Merlino was a bit of a right-leaning Labor person, but there is no such thing in the Labor Party. You're either left or you're far left. And it doesn't really matter because there's no second voice in the Victorian Parliament. Dan Andrews is the only voice, and if you don't cow down to Dan, then you're out the door, or you're put to the back of the queue. So we only have one person in this state that runs the whole show. Basically, he's the CEO of the police force, of the councils, of pretty much every entity and corporation that operates within our borders. And the buck stops with him, and potentially, I can see him. He brought some industrial manslaughter laws into this state a little while ago, and I allegedly, from what I can hear, he could be actually facing those charges himself in the not too distant future. So I'm looking forward to the day that he goes down.
Charges, weren't they? They were very serious charges and legislation that was introduced to the Victorian Parliament and passed. And it has very serious repercussions for people who are caught, breaking, doing harm to others, on an industrial scale, as you say. Dan Andrews has got a lot of questions to answer in a lot of areas. I mean, we can throw back to December last year. There was a court case in Myrtleford he was meant to appear at. He'd been served papers for. And variously, I've heard different stories. The court wasn't open that day. The court was open, but nobody turned up. They weren't hearing the case. Certainly, Dan Andrews himself didn't turn up. There was a media contingent, albeit probably independents, who turned up to see whether or not anybody turned up, I suspect. Do you know much about what happened and what is happening from that point on?
That case back in, I think it was the 17th of December. Yeah, it never got heard. They pretty much shut the court down. There were a lot of people up there because it created quite a bit of interest in this state. Now that case has never been seen the light of day in a courtroom. There's been no evidence produced or refuted from either side. So the case is still sitting there. I think there's 230 odd pages of that charge sheet. That now what a lot of people are doing, they're taking that into their court case themselves and handing that across to the police prosecutor. And the minute they do that, they don't want to look at it. They've been, or I've been led to believe they've been told not to touch it. And anyone that submits that into a courtroom or to the police prosecutor, their case pretty much, by the look of it, goes away. Now, that doesn't mean that they've it just gets put to the side. Shut it down. We're not hearing that case. So potentially that opens up a can of worms for some serious crimes in this state. If these barristers or people defending themselves get hold of what a lot of people have already started to do and submit these 237 pages as evidence that, well, you can't rule or judge me until this man's case gets heard because he's your boss.
Yeah.
So there's some potential ramifications at the moment with the fact that they will not hear the case against Dan Andrews.
How wide awake are Victorians in general to this information? Or, I mean, I've still got family down there that don't talk to me. So they think Dan Andrews is the man and, done nothing but great things.
Yeah, look, I wouldn't agree that everyone thinks that Dan Andrews is a man. I think the polls that bring out that information are very similar to a lot of the polls that we see all the time. They're just kind of hogwash, really. They put that out there to make people think, the same as they put it out there that 95% of people were vaccinated, when the real figure in this state is somewhere between 50 and 60, I believe.
Right, really?
So
that's
it's
very encouraging.
It's all misinformation. Yeah. And the governments, the whole lot of them, they lie to us on a daily basis to sway public opinion and to make people believe something that's real, it's not.
Yeah, absolutely true. And Victoria are known for heavy-handedness, both with the people and with the, it's not even laws they make. The health department make edicts. There's been some interesting developments in the case against Sutton in Victoria recently.
Yeah, well, there's another one. There's Sutton, if you read the 46-page final submission from Spiros in that case against Brett Sutton, the fact that he had no authorisation to do the lockdowns, to call a state of emergency. Now, I've only read about halfway through it. It makes some really interesting reading, and I'll be quite happy to email it to you.
Yeah, please.
Once again,
I've actually
that case
seen
basically tells us. Yep. That case basically tells us that pretty much anything since 1973, any act, any law, any parliament or any government is potentially unlawful, illegitimate, and none of those rules apply to any of us. Anything that's been done since 1973. So we're about to head up to all the local councils now, and I implore everyone around Australia to get hold of this 46-page final submission that Spiros submitted into the VCAT hearing against Brett Sutton, and read through it and go and approach your local council. I think we've all got to start at the council level, because it's very hard to get anything through the courts at the moment because they'll just shut it down. Our whole system is broke. Now we need, as a population and a community, is to get to our local mayor, who has a duty of care to his community, and get to the local councils and explain to them that they are sitting there illegitimately and why. And then once that paperwork's been lodged with them and it's been explained to them, if they send out one rates notice, they're doing that potentially fraudulently, knowing that they don't have the authority to do it.
Yep. And that can have serious repercussions down the line. I just want to flick something up on screen. This was sent to me today. Now, I did hear of Sir Harry Talbert Gibbs some years ago. I've got to admit, I'm not familiar with Dick Yardley's book, but I do know his name. But certainly what Sir Harry Talbot Gibbs has to say is fairly concerning, and I'll read it. I, therefore, have come to the conclusion that the current legal and political system in use in Australia and its states and territories has no basis in law. This document was compiled from research into factual evidence proving that members of political parties, each under their own party's constitution and policies, have, under progressive process, committed treason and treachery. That is a very serious word document.
Yep, that is. And when was that published?
Well, the only details that I have, literally, it turned up in my email today with no other details. In fact, it turned up 10 minutes before you and I sat down for this. So I haven't had time yet to research it, but it just seemed to sit so well with what you were saying that I thought I'll throw it up in here now, and maybe somebody knows more about it, can send us some details. Certainly email me at voiceoffreedomhq@gmail.com if you know anything at all about this. And I will try and search out this book by Dick Yardley. I can't remember why his name is familiar to me, but at any rate, we'll get back to that. It's interesting that this sort of information is now starting to come out, I think, Darren. Previously, you would have been called all sorts of conspiracy theorists for suggesting it, but more and more people are awake to the idea that not only our laws, but our constitution has been illegal from the get-go. So what's the tipping point? Melbourne, well, Victoria, you guys have had some huge protests on the streets down there, 500,000 people or more. What's going to get people back on the streets? I know it's the wrong time of year to be protesting in Melbourne, bloody cold. But what's it going to take to get people back on the streets? How do we get Dan Andrews answering for the alleged or suspected crimes that he may have to face?
Look, I think personally, I think it's going to be hard to get people back on the streets. It's going to be impossible to get people back to Canberra because they've been led down the garden path for 9 months now. They've been told, things are going to happen. And I know we can't, and we haven't been waiting for someone to come in and do something. But people are losing hope. People are just basically, I've spoken to quite a few people in the last couple of weeks that have just said, you know what, I'm over it. I'm just going to concentrate on what I can do and my own life. So they're leaving in droves, and you're not going to get them back on the streets. And if something doesn't give you, if there's not some way forward through a legitimate court system, then I mean, you got two ends of the spectrum. It's the old-fashioned way, and other ones are kind of just, they're almost giving up and saying, well, I'm not wasting any more of my time going to rallies and doing all this kind of stuff. I've got other things I need to do in my life. So we're losing people all the
time. There seems to be a lot of new truths being emerged through various different places. I don't know where you sit with all the tunnels and dumbs theories and all that. Melbourne seems to be a heart for that sort of operation if you're following that sort of stuff. The people in Victoria are very hardy people, but they've put up with an awful lot. There is talk now again of lockdowns coming our way sometime in the next couple of months. Will the Victorian people allow themselves to be locked down again? Particularly if it's I don't think it's going to be a monkeypox lockdown. I think it's going to be another Omicron kind of thing they'll push, because we've discovered that monkeypox is not just a funny name, but where it comes from, why people get it. So they're going to need to throw up another smokescreen. Will Victorians stand up this time and not allow themselves to be locked down, not allow themselves to have their businesses closed and lost again?
Oh, I think they probably will. I think that the state's full of a heap of spineless muppets, to tell you the truth. It astounds me how weak and insipid the people of this country are, and those people that gave their lives many years ago to give us a free and independent country would be turning in their graves to watch how weak we are. So yeah, look, it wouldn't surprise me if people did accept it. Obviously, there'll be the normal ones that won't, and. I mean, we're trying to educate people that they have no authority. Those rules mean nothing. But a couple of propaganda videos of someone getting slammed into the ground for not wearing a mask or getting stopped at the border and arrested, that's all it takes these people, because they've got no concept of what's really going on in the world. So yeah, I believe they will actually accept it.
Yeah, yeah. That's the sad thing, and I think if the world can do anything when lockdowns come is stand up. Don't let them do that to you again. Don't let them tear your business out from under you again, because you may not recover. In fact, if you let them do it again, you will never recover. Things will never, ever be the same. So my advice would be to stand up, unite, present a unified front, and make sure that you get rid of Dan Andrews. I don't know how he's been able to stay in power so long with it. Well, maybe he's had the aid of, machinery. I don't know. Who knows? A lot of pretty weird things happening. So you've been on the hunt to gather supporters behind you and your movement. How's that going?
Once again, it's a real struggle. It's a struggle to get anyone to get off their ass and do anything. And we had a meeting here Wednesday night, had 100 odd people, and every meeting we have, I said, next meeting, can you bring someone new, someone from outside the circle, so we're not just preaching to the converted. And I think I could count on one hand how many new people were there on Wednesday night. So people, and whether it's even with A1, we had 5,000 A1 supporter group, or not members, but supporters in Victoria. And I believe that we were struggling to get 10% of those people to actually come and help hand out how to vote. We only had 4 candidates that run that were backed by A1, and we struggled to get 10% of the 5,000 to come out and help us. So people, they'll sit there, they'll whinge, they'll moan, complain. Why isn't something happening? And yet they won't get off their backside and do anything themselves. So, in my opinion, these people are going to get what they deserve, and people are going to lose their houses. Interest rates are going to go up potentially 0.75% next week or the week after. And I've heard that August they'll go up 1%, and they're just going to decimate the small businesses in this country, because they won't have any disposable income once they finish paying for their petrol and their interest rates and their groceries to be able to spend on small business and local markets.
Yeah. Well, you pay anywhere between $6 and $12 for a lettuce in southeast Queensland at the moment. I'm sure it's similar down where you are.
Yep.
Everything is just getting...
$32 for beans a kilo, $42 for snow peas a kilo.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Wow. Geez, you've really got to want your snow peas, haven't you? Mind you
do.
Are,
so, but once again, that's all orchestrated as well. I mean, that's an orchestrated event. So I can guarantee you that all these supply constraints on fresh food are there, but then there's no supply constraints on junk food, and McDonald's and all of these places have got plenty of product to be able to keep pumping out their shit food. It's very actually, I watched a short clip the other day that explained it really well, and I'll send that one to you as well. It's worth a watch. I can't remember the guy's name now, but it was only 15 minutes, but it was absolute gold.
Yeah, excellent. And that's the thing. I've noticed a big uplift in the tempo of this sort of imagery that's coming out. People are getting a lot more direct in what they're saying, and a lot more cutting, I guess, in some cases. So do you get the feeling that there's more going on behind the scenes than we know about?
Well, I've had that feeling for many years, and I've been telling people stuff and been made to look like an idiot so many times that I've pretty much pulled my head in now at saying that what's coming. I believe potentially there's some stuff there, but at the end of the day, I'm not banking on that anymore. We could be getting played by both sides here. So I'm not, we can't rely on that. And
Yep.
I think the people that are awake are becoming awake to a deeper level, and they are understanding the fact that the criminals that are running this country and pretty much everything that control us, and they are criminals, not all of them, but a lot of them, people are starting to understand that their authority is non-existent, and they are happy now to actually come out and say stuff without fear of reprisal. So, yeah, I think people's language is getting a lot stronger because we know these idiots aren't in control, and we are going to take them down, and that's a fact.
So I want to take you back to something you said toward the beginning of our conversation today, where you mentioned that Dan Andrews is the CEO of Victoria. Now, people call him the Premier, but the fact of the matter is he is the CEO of the Corporation of Victoria. Now, that puts him in a very unique position, and in fact, it would make him superior to the Governor-General, wouldn't it?
Well, we don't have a Governor-General either. That's a fictitious role, or if we do, they're in hiding. That David Hurley's not the Governor-General.
I was thinking more of the state one.
Sorry?
I was thinking more of the state Governor-General.
Oh, yeah. Well, Linda Dessau, she's not the governor. Now, she's parading as the governor, but she's not the governor, and she didn't sign the dodgy writ that eventually came out on Friday night before the election. The bottom signature on that was Dan Andrews, Dictator Dan, and he's a piece of shit, and he will be, I believe, he will be exposed on so many different levels, and he cannot hide. Teflon Dan isn't going to stay that way forever, and he's so many things afoot at the moment that will expose him for who he is.
So tell us about the Victorian side of the federal election. Obviously, you ran. The results are what they are. You're still. You've obviously put in your complaints to the AEC and all and sundry. Have you obviously encouraged as many people around you to do the same? I hope.
Yeah, we are. I mean, there's a lot of talk now. I was listening to Rod Cullerton the other day and Steve Dixon. So there is a lot more movement on things starting to. It takes a long time to put all this kind of stuff together, and I am still pursuing my legitimate seat of Dunkley under the Commonwealth of Australia Parliament, which that seat has been abandoned for 49 years. And now we have the Australian government incorporated, which is a parallel system to the one that we have known before 1973. So all of that's been done unlawfully. It is being exposed, and these cases that Spiros has got, the case against Dan Andrews, all of that shows that. And anyone that's and this judge that's come out now, if that is a true statement from that judge. That's just a rat trying to jump off a sinking ship potentially, because they've known this for decades.
I get the feeling that Sir Harry dates back to the 60s and 70s, but I haven't done a search on him to try and find out the bona fides. So yes, we should stress that image that I put up, I haven't checked it in any way, shape, or form. So I don't know any of its validities, but I do know the name Dick Yardley, and rather than being rude and go and Google search it while I'm talking to you, we'll make that for another day. So I'm very keen to see, or get the feel for what's happening in Victoria. I believe that Victoria is going to be a catalyst for Australia. I think Victoria is going to be where the movement will really start, and where many of the truths through Dan Andrews, I think, are going to be exposed. I know that there are a number of secrets being hidden by the Queensland government that date back, 30, 40 years as well. Every chance that they'll come out in the not too distant future too, and that would bring down the Queensland government, I think. So These are things that are floating around in the background at the moment and are gaining momentum. What do you think that means for the next few months?
Oh, look, I think the next few months are going to be. We only need one of those decisions to come through, and the Spiros case against Sutton, there's already precedents being set, and it's pretty water soaked how he's explained that in that final brief or final submission. So we just need one of those to drop, and that'll be the first domino. Once that case gets proven, and he's there's already another case at the moment against the I can't think of the guy's name that he started Make Australia Healthy Again, the Indian fella.
Right.
Now,
yep.
He was in a court case, and I don't know what the charges were against him, but he was coming up to the final day and the ruling on his case, and he was in a bit of strife by the look of it, and he actually got hold of Spiros and rang him and spoke to him and said, "Look, I'm in trouble. What can I do?" Spiros told him to get his barrister to ring him, which he did. They had a discussion. Spiros sent him that final submission, the 46 pages, and told him that you need to hand this to the judge next time you're in court. So his barrister did that, handed it to the judge. The judge read it and looked up and kind of said, "Well, where's this come from? What is it?" The barrister explained to him that it's a case that's pending a decision. It's final submission. She's gone away to deliberate, or the judge has gone away to deliberate and come back with a ruling. So the judge basically looked at the defendant and said, "Well, I can't rule on this case today because what happens in this case? If this case gets up, you're a free man, and so are 2,000 other people that have already been convicted." For the fines or whatever else it was that they were up against. Because if Brett Sutton didn't have the authority to call the state of emergency and to do the lockdowns and close businesses, then none of the fines, the mask wearing, all of that stuff is gone away. So it's a mess for a judge to sit there and make that ruling that he can't rule on a case until the kind of ruling comes on the case that Spiros has kind of put up. That's a big thing.
Yeah. There are some interesting developments in Canberra with one of the truthers who was arrested there a little while ago, and police overreach. And I know people in Victoria have had, you mentioned cases, some people have been silly enough to go and pay their mask fines and that kind of thing. This particular bloke in Canberra, who doesn't speak English very well at all, was pulled over by police, harassed by police, eventually arrested by police, charged with resisting arrest of police, threatened with all manner of, all sorts of things that scared the hell out of him because he doesn't speak the language very well, and he, imagined there were repercussions for his family with this and all sorts of things. Turns out they've dropped or changed the charge that he's due to go and face the magistrate for. And they've changed it from resisting police or resisting arrest to disobeying a territory public official. Now, I know in Victoria there are a number of cases where the constables who have issued fines were not able to do so because they didn't have the correct training or hadn't been briefed correctly or whatever. I'm wondering whether or not the federal police in Canberra may have a similar issue, because by changing the definition of that, what he's been charged with, he now has grounds for illegal arrest and detainment, I would have thought, because he thought he was being arrested by police. Territory officials don't have any powers of arrest or anything like that. So have any Victorians, to your knowledge, had any luck with a wrongful arrest case in court?
Well, look, I'm not. I have heard of that problem in Victoria, that some of them swore the wrong oath or something. I do believe there's a problem with some federal police, but there's a problem with every single public officer in this country.
Yeah,
and they're all unlawful, and they cannot. They've got no power over anybody whatsoever. They can't even pull you over because there are no laws in this country.
Yeah.
And there's been no law since 1973.
Yeah. You understand that's very difficult for people
Yeah,
who
it
aren't
is.
to understand.
Yep.
And even for those who are reasonably awake, if there's no laws, what do we do with the bad people that we catch in the community? And Melbourne's had its fair share of bloody horrible criminals doing things to people on the streets that are, bound up now for life, thank God, in Barwon prison. But people are rightfully concerned. What happens to those sorts of people when you start talking about no laws?
Well, obviously, there still are some laws, and if you do no harm to anybody or anybody's property, then pretty much you are in a good place. Now, these bad criminals that are doing harm to people or potentially to people's property, then those laws, there are laws there that do stand, and obviously there's got to be a bit of common sense about the bad criminals that are in there. So that's all got to play out. But what worries me at the moment is that any criminal or any person that has to go to court can hand over the Dan Andrews charge sheets, all 237 of them, and give that to the police prosecutor, and that could potentially halt any case against that person. That's already starting to play out. Now, we've got a lot of people that, and not barristers, because we know barristers are all part of the system.
Yeah.
So they swear an oath to something that isn't there, so I'm told, to help the people. The people that are actually defending themselves are now starting to go at the police prosecutors and get them on the hook to make them aware of what's actually happening and the charges against Dan Andrews. We're about to start doing the same thing with the councils, and also the stuff that Brett Sutton's put out there as far as our constitution and the illegality or unlawfulness of pretty much every act and law. There is no state government, local government act. That's a furphy. Never got voted through for the third sitting. So there is so much evidence out there that we, the people, now need to, on a local level, get to our councils and start to inform them and get them to start to turn around and do the right thing by the people. And that's where it's got to start. Now, the people that are already in court can do it through the police prosecutors and try and do it through the court system. But the people need to go in numbers. Instead of going to Melbourne with 500,000, we need 5,000 at the Frankston City Council and 5,000 at Mornington Peninsula Council with this information, demanding an explanation and demanding an investigation.
Yeah, absolutely. Once again, I guess you can be counted on to coordinate this if called upon.
Sorry, mate, I'm just about going flat. I've got to plug you in. I am. We've got a group here at Frankston that we're starting to work towards that and get all this information collated, get a group together, and we'll be starting to roll this out this week. Now, I've had a letter or an email from the council, and also a phone call and a text message about removing my political signage that's still on the side of my building and on the front of my building.
Yep.
Now, I'm just waiting back for some answers on from my my lawyer, or he's not even a lawyer, but from my legal advice. He's saying that I don't need to reply to that because there is no law to say that I need to take that political advertising down.
Yeah.
So I haven't said that I won't, but at this stage I'll be looking potentially to send a letter back saying under what authority or what act are you kind of sending that request.
Yep. Understand. That'll make for a very interesting council meeting. I look forward to hearing how that one goes. Yeah,
well, the problem with council meetings that they won't let you in there if you've got something to discuss that they don't want people to hear. It's like the courtrooms. When someone goes into a courtroom and they know how to speak English in a courtroom, because it's a whole different language than the English we speak outside the courtroom. When they get people in there and they bring something to the courtroom, they'll kick everybody out.
Yeah,
they'll postpone or they'll kick everyone out of the courtroom so no one hears it apart from the judge and a couple of people that are involved.
And that's exactly what's happened with the Aussie Cossack in New South Wales. in all of his bail hearings, and I'm sure what will happen with him on the 30th of June for his sentencing. So even Mrs. Cossack was lucky she was the only one that was allowed inside, and they didn't even want to let her in there.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Wonderful. It's a wonderful democracy we have, isn't it?
Oh, bloody fantastic. Darren,
Yep.
if there are a bunch of Victorians who haven't heard about you already, because let's face it, you're the tradie that fixes things, then how can people find you? What can they do to help you?
Okay, so I run a community, or I don't run, but I'm part of a community that I kind of started at my building in Frankston last year called My Place Frankston on Facebook.
Yep.
So you can join that, and you can follow a lot of the stuff that we're doing down on the peninsula, or you can go to Darren4Dunkley.com and follow the stuff that we're putting on there. And we're trying to get more and more content all the time now to explain to people, just break it down in layman's terms exactly what we're talking about. Because quite often I'll get on and do a 4 or 5 minute clip, but I don't have all the right acts or the stuff that people can go and research this. But we're also holding public meetings. We're doing printouts where people can take this stuff away. I'm also involved with the Australia Project team, Lance and Kent Brown from Queensland,
Yes.
TAP. Now, Ainsley from Perth, she's part of that as well. They've got a street reps program. So I'm actually set up a TAP satellite suburb in Frankston out of my place. And we're running, starting our own food network and various other things. In fact, we're actually toying with the idea at the moment of setting up our own council, running parallel with the Frankston City Council, and maybe calling it the Frankston Community Council, where anybody that's awake can potentially pay their rates into our trust fund, and we will start operating a parallel council, similar to what Bob Hawke did pretty much back in 1986 when he set up the Incorporated Government of Australia, running parallel with the Commonwealth of Australia Parliament. So we can do whatever we want legally. I can set up, or we can set up our own council and migrate people out of the fictitious system that we have now into our own. So we've got lots of options on the table, and we've got lots, 2,800, nearly 2,900 now in our community. And we're starting to build all these platforms to educate people, get flyers out through our street reps program, where we'll just walk the streets like we did in the election when we handed out how to vote cards. So we are building an army of community that are sick and tired and are pushing back in as many different ways as we can, legally and lawfully, without violence.
Yes, that's the important part. There is no solution in violence, none at all. And for those parties that have rebellion and those sorts of words in their title, you want to be very careful. You're lining yourself up for a very, very hard fall. Using and certainly some of their plans that I've heard, if they were to be true, you're going to wind yourself up in a place you never dreamed existed. So just be very careful about any group that's got an R word in it anywhere that's remotely rebellious, because it's a very, very bad word to have in your title at this time, I think, in our history. I'm really thankful, Darren, that you've come and spent the time with us again today. I don't know, I send you all the power we can from Queensland, but my God, we got a ton of corruption to deal with up here too. And and I'm bloody sure that ours, while different, is on a similar scale. And I can't wait for some of those egregious acts to be exposed alongside what's happened in Victoria, and look forward to having you back on again next time, mate. We'll have another chat. In fact, you mentioned TAP. I was talking to Kent today, and we're lining up to have a bit of a chat next week. He's going to come on the show and have a bit of a chat. So I'm looking forward to getting that on the air as well.
Yep, that'd be great. All right, thanks very much, Carl, again, for the opportunity to kind of share what we're doing down here and share a bit more information. There's more coming online every day. There's more and more stories. There's more and more good stuff that I can share. I'd love to talk to you again in another week or two, whatever time frame suits you. Mate. And hopefully I'll have a bit more insight at that time.
Absolutely, absolutely. Anytime. As soon as you get something you want to talk to me about, just bell me and we'll sort it out, mate. It's
Yep.
that easy. So yeah, once again, thank you very much for coming on. Oh, I don't suppose you know any solar installers who might like to move north to Queensland?
Oh, look, right now, I'd love to move north, but I've never run away from a fight in my life, and I'm not about to run away from this one because this is probably the most important one that I've ever been involved in, and I'm staying put. But all the faint-hearted ones have already left, and the real soldiers have stayed, and we'll get the job done.
Absolutely. Well, if you happen to hear of anybody that are moving north, I know of a solar install or a solar business that's looking for installers in southeast Queensland. So there's ready in business, ready to go if you're coming up this way. Once again, mate, really appreciate it. Thank you very much for coming on and giving us a bit of an update on what's going on in Victoria at the moment, and all power to you fixing it.
Thanks very much, Carl, and I'll speak to you next time.
Absolutely. Cheers.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's ride!